Welcome, everyone. My name is Coach David. I am here with Financial Aid Secrets and egelloC to present to you saving money in multiple ways, right? Now, when we're headed off to college, one of the big things that we're always worried about is paying for it, right? And so if there are ways to save money, I definitely want to share them with you. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple strategies today, and I'm also going to kind of share some, things that are going on in the financial aid world. Okay, there's a lot of things and a lot of moving parts currently in the situation that we have, right? With the new administration and the changes that are being put in place. So we'll talk about those as well. Okay. So with that, let's kind of get rolling here. Okay. So first, we're going to talk about kind of like, what you do need to do to get aid, right? What's the best way to prepare, and also what you should be doing. Okay. Now, as far as our recordings, right? We will have this recording available for families in our Facebook group later on in the evening. We'll make a post about it. And if you're in our kind of coaching program already, we'll have this on our private YouTube channel. Okay. So again, I'm Coach David. I'm going to be helping you through this training. I work on both sides of the coin, right? So I am helping students get to college by through our coaching program. I'm also helping families pay for college through our Financial Aid Secrets program. Okay. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the chat or in the Q&A. Okay. So as far as financial aid, right? We'll go ahead and talk about some things that you guys have probably already seen. Okay. One of the things is if you currently have a senior right now, right, and you didn't file for financial aid, you got saved a little bit because the California in general has extended their financial aid deadline until April 2nd. So you still have about 3 weeks left in order to file your financial aid. Okay. Now, I did want to talk about something else that was happening. Okay. So in the Department of Education, which is kind of like the foremost or the biggest player in kind of college financing, right? There have been layoffs and reductions. 50% of the workforce was let go yesterday. Okay. So how does this affect an individual person, right? Well, the answers are still really vague because we don't know what's happening to the Department of Education, all these different things, right? But, right, there are kind of rumors floating around. And again, until they have been verified, they are rumors, right? But there are different pieces that are being said to be kind of handed off to different departments. Okay, so loans might go to a certain area, like the Small Business Administration, the Department of Treasury, or the Commerce Department, right? Pell Grants might stay in the Department of Education, right? Other things might be changing as well, right? But the Department of Education doesn't just deal with financing college, right? It also deals with civil rights violations and discrimination in education as well, right? Now, one of the things that most proponents have said is that it might be harder to bring a claim for civil rights violations or discrimination in education because, well, there's going to be less of a kind of workforce to take those claims. Okay. But as things change with the Department of Education and the administration and the changes that they're kind of making in education, I will keep you guys updated as much as possible. Now, something that is a little bit more kind of relevant right now and that has already started is actually for those that already have loans or that have loans that might be in repayment soon. Okay. So the income-driven repayment programs might be going away, right? So the income-driven repayment programs are programs where they cap the amount of money that they can take from a student, right, based on their income. So it could be anywhere between 10 and 15%. Okay. Now, here's the thing, right? That protection was there and it helped a lot of students kind of get on their feet. Without that program there anymore, it is going to be much harder for students to kind of, well, I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, survive once they leave college, right? They have $27,000 in loans, right? They are put on a kind of just standard repayment schedule, which is a 10-year program to do that. Now, that might not seem like a lot, right? Because it's like, well, it's only $2,700 a year, right? But when you're starting out in the workforce, having to make any sort of payment, right, other than your rent is going to be a big problem for a lot of people. Okay. So, as far as kind of the income-driven repayments, right, even on the FAFSA website, right, there used to be an online option where you can request that repayment option, but that is now gone. Okay. So they say turn in a paper form, but whether it'll be processed or not with the lack of workforce at the Department of Education, that's something to be seen as well. So if you are a family that has a student that's already in college, right, and you guys are heading towards repayment, right? Or if you're already in repayment right now and you're on an income-driven repayment plan, it is something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. Now, again, stay tuned. I'm going to try to bring you guys the most relevant information every week, but we'll see what is happening in the world of financial aid next week. Okay. Now, again, before I start my training, I always have this fair warning, right? There's too many families out there that are not applying for financial aid. Okay. The reason why, well, there's multiple reasons, but one of the reasons why the California kind of deadline has been extended to April 2nd is that there are less and less people applying for financial aid because they think and they hypnotize themselves, right? And kind of brainwash themselves into thinking that they're not going to get any money. Okay. But just because your family owns their home or has a rental property or that you guys have prepared for the future through a retirement, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to get anything. So make sure to kind of stay tuned with our trainings to make sure that you guys can save the most possible. Okay. Now, quick word from our sponsor. I've had this ever since, the beginning of the year. The reason I want to have this here is because I want families to understand that we, right here at egelloC and Financial Aid Secrets, we work together to make sure that families have the best options in front of them. Now, in order to think about paying for college, we need to first get into college, right? And so we do have summer programs, so kind of spring and summer programs to help your rising senior make the most of their applications, right? So there is a college app intensive, right? The whole thing is what we call the college app intensive, but there's two parts to that. The kickstart happens earlier, right? Either in the late spring or early summer, right? It's a one-day event where students come with their ideas. We help them get to a rough draft phase so that they are on the right track with their essays, right? Now, you might be thinking to yourself, my student's really good at writing. They've gotten A's in English the whole time. I'm actually most worried about those students, right? Because they think that they are good at writing, okay? But they might be good at English class writing, but college essay writing is a completely different thing, right? I've had so many students that have taken honors English 9, English 10, right? And then taken AP Lang and they're taking AP Lit and they come in with their essays and I'm like, did you even read the question? Right? Because students have never written about themselves. Okay. So there's a kickstart, right? There's also an accelerator. The accelerator, the point of the accelerator is to get students to their final drafts of their kind of main essays, their UCPIQs, and also their Common App personal statement. This will be in a much smaller group setting, right? You work individually with a coach, right? You go back to your seat, work on your essays, on the edits, and then come back. Okay. But we have virtual and in-person options, right? And they're going to be available in July, August, and September. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. All right. But let's talk about kind of saving money step by step, right? Because there's kind of different parts of the puzzle. Okay. So first, step one. Okay. Saving in the right way. Now, over the past kind of 3, 4, 5 weeks, I've been talking about how to save, like how to protect your assets, all these different things. But I'm going to do a really quick summary here of all those different things, right? How should you save? Well, grandparent held 529s. Grandparent held 529s will not be part of the financial aid equation. So they will not affect your student's financial aid. Okay. The other thing that you should be thinking about is that parent held assets, right, should be the primary way that assets are held, right? We should never have things in students' names. So I know that there's a lot of parents that have set up investment accounts for their children for their future, right? Or commodities accounts, or the kind of the minor trust accounts, right? All of these things. But here's the reason why they are bad. Okay, right? All of these accounts, if held in the student's name, instead of being kind of looked at and kind of college is saying, hey, we can take a certain percentage, the percentage is 4 times higher. Okay, so let's say that there's $100 in an UTMA account. Okay, that is going to be calculated that we can take $20 of that, 20%, right? If there is an asset that is held in the parent's account, right? There's just a trust account in the parent's name, then that's just a $5. Okay, 5%. That's what they think they can take. Okay, so that's how you should be saving when it comes to these different pieces. Okay. Now, step 2 is your income for that year. Okay, this is another way to save on college. The first thing that I will say is that income is not static. Okay, there are things that you can do in order to lower your income for your baseline year. Okay. Now, a lot of people think, well, oh, I just work for a company. They send me my W-2. That's the end of it. That's all I can really do, right? That's not the case, right? There's unpaid leave that you might be able to take, right? Or like family leave that you might be able to take that will lower your kind of income for that year, right? You might have some really bad investments that you did, right? You might want to kind of take the loss on that investment that year, right? Again, bonuses, right? Or kind of stock vesting, right? You want to make sure that those things are not happening in your baseline year if possible, right? Larger contributions to your retirement funds, right? A lot of people already are maxing them out, but if you're not maxing them out, you should try to, right? Because those are pre-tax dollars that you can take out, right? And then finally, right, finding more expenses for your business. Let's say that you own a bakery and then, you don't really need to, but you really want to, get new ovens, right? That's a huge expense, right? So maybe you find more expenses for your business to lower your pass-through income if you're an LLC, sole prop, or an S corp, right? If you do have a C corp, right, you might think about lowering your salary for that baseline year. Now, the question that I will inevitably get is, what is that baseline year? The baseline year is always calculated this way. Think about when your student will be graduating from high school. If they're graduating in 2026, they will take the tax year from 2 years before, which is 2024. Okay. So if you have 2027 minus 2, 2025, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, I have a lot of families recently come up to me and be like, oh, you know what? My 24, like I have a 26 student, right? They're graduating. They're going to be a senior next year. My 24, right, isn't that great, right? It's higher. My 25 is going to be much lower, right? Now, unfortunately, the information that they pull from is going to be your 24. But what does that mean if your 25 is going to be significantly lower? Then that means that there are ways to kind of appeal and negotiate based on what your 25 returns look like. But, right, what will we need to do? Well, we will need to file your taxes very early the following year when you're at like basically in the middle of your student's first year, so that we can show the colleges that that is indeed true. Okay, so keep that in mind there. Okay, now step three, right? These are kind of some cautionary things for you to stay away from in your baseline year, right? Capital gains in your baseline year, inheritance in your baseline year. Now, you might be thinking, Coach David, you are super cruel, right? Inheritance happens, people pass away, right? You can't really stop that, but you can actually stop or you can actually delay when you receive that inheritance. Okay. So again, talk to, your lawyer, talk to your financial advisor to see what you can do to push it out of that year, right? Now, just generally speaking, we don't want any anomalies to your regular income, right? Now, if it's a negative anomaly, it makes your income go down significantly. That's great, right? Well, I mean, it's great for the purposes of financial aid, not to the overall situation, right? But it's great to the financial aid parts, right? But if there is an irregular increase, right? It just makes it so that there's more work for us to show that that was a one-time occurrence, right? I definitely have families where like, their company does really well, right? They get rewarded, through kind of, a buyout of their stocks or this or that, so on and so forth. And their normal income is, I don't know, 250,000. But in a certain year, because their stocks have vested and this has happened, or, they got a huge investment piece and they're getting a huge bonus, right? Their income might be like $700,000. Right? That is a one-time occurrence, but in the eyes of the financial aid office, they're looking at your tax return, they see that it came in, well, that's your income, right? So again, try to make the least amount of work for yourself so that we can kind of make sure that you're getting the most, right? Now, if there are large life changes that are happening to your family, right, make sure to reach out to us so that we can talk to you, help you understand your situation a little bit better, okay? So that is one piece there, right? Now, there are obviously other ways to save too, right? And I'll talk about a couple of them. One of them that I actually didn't put on my kind of, presentation today, but I will talk about is like outside scholarships. But I'll tell you the pros and the cons of what outside scholarships might be doing to your financial aid. Okay. So the first piece I'm going to talk about is leveraging your awards. Okay. So let's go a little bit further into that. Now, in order to leverage your award, you will obviously need to have multiple colleges that you got into, right? But financial aid is not necessarily just like oh, well, here is your kind of like financial aid. That's the end of the story, right? There is always power to change the circumstances that you are in, right? So you can use another school's offer to reach out to the school that you want to go to ask for more financial aid. But there are restrictions, okay? So the state schools, they don't care that Stanford gave you, $80,000 and you're only going to pay $10,000 to go, right? Because the state schools know that they are, I mean, especially in California, they know that, well, we have a very nice, like, a quality of education, right? We know that we're already very competitive when it comes to pricing, right? And so they don't care if you got a full scholarship from any other school. Well, the price that you're going to pay there is the price that you're going to pay, right? So the leveraging will normally happen when you have private schools on kind of your chessboard, okay? So for instance, let's say that you had, I don't know, the number one ranked private school and you have the number 100 ranked private school. Okay. Now, one of the things I always say is that you need to be comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges, right? So they need to be relatively close in order to be considered comparable schools that you can use to negotiate against each other. Okay. So the number one school and the number 100 school, again, the number one school will not care about the number 100 school. The number 100 school will care about the number one school, but again, you need to be in a very particular situation to leverage that, right? So again, compare apples to apples, right? So, right, if you are, let's say you got into the number 5 and the number 8 private college in the United States, right? Then at those two schools, yes, I do think that is an apples to apples situation where you can pit them against each other so that you can get more money, right? I've helped families do it over and over again. Okay. So the one thing I want to say here is do not think that your aid is final, right? Until you've looked at all the options and the opportunities, make sure that you are kind of fighting all the way until the end, right? Now, there's also kind of special circumstances that might increase your savings as well, right? And again, these need to be things that are provable, right? So there is an appeal process when it comes to financial aid, right? Whether it's a loss of employment, a change in circumstance, right? There's emergency medical expenses, right? Or there's like kind of like family issues, whatever it is, it needs to be something that can be proven so that the colleges can give you more aid, right? Just because your income dipped a little bit, like it dipped, I don't know, let's say that you normally make 207 and you make 200 this year, right? That is not enough for an appeal in the eyes of the financial aid office, right? The other kind of really big thing that happens, and especially if families are doing it on their own, evidence of errors on a form submitted to the financial aid office, right? So let's say that your income is $106,000, but as you were inputting it, you accidentally put an extra zero and now you make 1.6 million or 1.06 million, right? Whatever it is, right? If there is evidence of those forms, obviously you can appeal and then turn in paperwork to show what your actual income is. Okay. So keep those things in mind there. Right? Now, before we go into why we're different, I also told you I wanted to bring up another part of the puzzle here, which are outside scholarships. That is definitely another way that families can save on financial, like kind of the financial cost of college. Okay. Now, when I'm talking about outside scholarships, just to make it easy for everyone to understand, right? The aid that I am trying to get for you is institutional aid, right? From the college, the state government, and the federal government. That's where I'm trying to get money for you guys, right? Now, outside scholarships are like your local, I don't know, city scholarship, right? There might be like a Rotary Club scholarship, a Coca-Cola scholarship, Amazon, right? Google, whatever company you can think about, right? So those are the kind of different outside scholarships that are there. Now, one of the things that you need to be careful of when you're applying to outside scholarships is that it will not decrease the amount of financial aid you're going to receive from your school. Okay. So just as an example, I just had a family reach out, right? They're part of our program and they said, hey, there's a school, they're asking for additional information, right? And they're asking about additional information about any outside scholarships that we have received, right? And I was like, well, do you have any? And they're like, well, luckily they didn't, right? And so I said, yeah, you can mark no here, right? But the question that should be in your mind is, well, why is this school asking? And just to give you guys a little bit more context, this school is Columbia. Okay. Columbia is a very rich school. They have money to send kids to college for the next 10,000 years, right? But why are they asking? They're asking because if you did get outside scholarships, they are trying to decrease the amount of aid that they have to give you. So let me just give you a very simple explanation. Let's say that they were going to give you $10,000 a year, right? But you got an outside scholarship from, I don't know, like your city, like, and because I'm in San Francisco Bay Area, I'll just say San Francisco City Scholarship, and I got it for $2,000. Now, the government also wants to kind of increase its charitable giving, and it has taxes at the end of the year, so it's trying to lower those costs. So they're probably going to send it directly to school, right? Now, if they do send it directly to school, what will end up happening with your financial aid is that your $10,000 that you were going to get will get decreased to $8,000 and they will add the $2,000 on top, right? Now, here's where the problem occurs, right? Now, the first year, it's a net neutral situation. You still save $10,000, so everyone's happy, right? But starting in year two, if that San Francisco City Scholarship was only good for 1 year or 2 years, right? Then in the following years after, your baseline has now been set at $8,000, which is basically a decrease from what they were originally going to give you, right? So in the years when after the scholarship is kind of like it's gone, right? There will be a gap there that now the parents and the family and the student need to fill. Okay. So outside scholarships can be good, right? You need to check on how long they are good for, right? And you also want to make sure how they're going to give it to you, right? If they're going to send it directly to the school, your school will most likely, and I say this with like 99% confidence, that they will decrease your aid, right? Because why does the school need to give you extra money? Let me just give you a more kind of an easier example. Let's say that we're going to go to a private school. It costs $90,000 to go there, right? And then let's say that we got a $70,000 scholarship from Coca-Cola, right? And then the school was normally going to give us $50,000, right? So if we take the $70,000 and the $50,000 that we're going to get from school already, then for that year, we're going to have $120,000. That means that the school needs to return to us $30,000. Do you think that any college is that generous? Unfortunately not, right? So obviously, if you're applying for like a full ride scholarship that takes care of everything while you're in college, sure, right? But you need to know that the kind of the chances of a student winning that are severely low, right? So there's a lot of things to kind of process, but right, generally speaking, outside scholarships, right? If they're handing you like cash in hand, right? If they're depositing a check into your account, right? If they're giving you a Visa gift card valued at $5,000, right? Then those usually are okay. But if they ever ask, where are you going to school? Where do we send your scholarship? You might want to think twice about giving them that information. Okay. Now, something a little bit different today. I wanted to tell you guys why we're different than other financial aid companies, because there are other financial aid companies out there. And I've worked at a lot of the other ones, and I've also been to a lot of different trainings that these companies have, right? But for us, this is why we are different, right? We are different because I'm not forcing you to buy a life insurance or a tax deferred annuity. There are so many companies out there that try to use this to basically, they're using financial aid to try to sell life insurance products, annuity products. Okay. We take you as you are, right? We also don't say that you need to have a 4.5 GPA or a 1500 plus on your SATs, right? Now, because I am so involved in this space, right? One of the things that happens on all of my social media is that my social media algorithms are now focused on college going students and financial aid and things like that. I see a lot of people out there saying that, oh, I've written a book, right? New York Times bestseller, this and that, and so on and so forth, right? And they say, oh, I'm going to tell you the tricks. Well, the tricks that I've seen that them tell about is like, well, yeah, go and get straight A's, take 15 AP classes, and get a 1600 on your SAT, right? Everyone would love to do that, right? But unfortunately, it's not achievable by most students, right? So that's why we need to take you in the situation that you are. The third thing that I've seen, right? And again, it all depends on kind of like what your value system is, right? But, right, one of the things I've also seen in other programs is that they force you to apply to colleges that you would never want to go to in the first place, right? Now, for those of you that have had consultations with me, I'm very blunt about it, right? Yeah, there are colleges in the United States where I know you can go and you are going to pay a very, very small fraction of the price because no one's going there, right? Now, for my families and my students that are mostly based in California and kind of the Eastern Seaboard, maybe Texas, right? Those families, they're looking for kind of like they want name value for their student, right? They want to go to a school that has a solid reputation, right? And so one of the things that we do is we don't tell you your college list. You actually tell us where you're applying, right? Now, if you're on our coaching side, we will definitely tell you, hey, these are some reaches, these are some targets, these are some safeties, right? But we're never going to dictate what your college list is going to look like, right? Again, other colleges promise you the moon, but there's always a kind of caveat to that. And the caveat is you need to buy this product, right? Or you need to apply to this particular school, right? I mean, again, I have nothing against Kentucky, but if anyone here is looking to apply to, Western Kentucky Christian University, right? I know that we can go there and pay a very nominal price to go to college, right? But if your student is looking for, top 20, 50, 100, 150 schools in the United States, right? Then we need to find ways to save you guys money that is not contingent on those things. Okay. So this is what I tell my families, right? Everyone should have a consultation, whether we can work for you or not, right? That is up to the situation that you're in, right? There's plenty of families that I have turned away because I cannot help them, right? But, right, if I can help you, I'll tell you about our program. Make sure that you understand everything so that we can kind of save you money together. Okay. Now, again, I do have a special offer for those people here live, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording in just a couple seconds, right? But I did want to make sure that our families, have a way to reach out to us. So if you're watching this recording, go ahead and text money, or actually, you know what? Things have changed. Do not text us, right? So if you are interested in reaching out to us, go ahead and scan the QR codes and book your call there. Okay. I will also put the link for the financial aid consultation in the chat below. Okay, so you guys can go ahead and see that, right? But we have just changed our phone numbers over, right? Because we're on a different system. But I will get that new phone number next week, right? But for right now, go ahead and use the link in the chat. Go ahead and use the QR codes to book that. If you're having any issues, reach out on Facebook, Discord, email, whatever you can get us, text, whatever you can get us on. Okay. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and I will share the offer here. So we're gonna move on to Q&A now, right? For those that are interested, like curious about what that kind of special offer was, we'll be here next week, right? So we're gonna go jump into Q&A, and I already see some questions, so let's go ahead with that. All right, so we have a question that says, with new cuts to the Department of Education, research cuts to Columbia, are public or private schools more likely to be affected? Are there any colleges we should avoid going to because of financial cuts? No, right? So generally speaking, the answer to that is no, right? Now, is everything in limbo? Yes, everything is in limbo right now, right? Because, well, a lot of colleges, they're a little bit unsure about what's going to happen with their federal funding, right? There's a lot of colleges that have come out and said, we're not going to change what we've been doing, right? And there also have been colleges that said, yeah, we're going to do everything to comply by federal law, right? So we'll have to see kind of as the dust settles, like what happens at various colleges, right? But as of right now, it's very difficult for me to give an answer as to are there any colleges we should avoid going to because of financial cuts, right? But generally speaking, state schools versus private schools have a larger percentage of their funding coming from federal sources than do private schools, right? So just to give you a figure, right, at the UCs, about 50% of a year's budget comes from federal funding, right? So is there a higher likelihood that state schools across the United States might have a harder time in the future? Yes, right? But um, again, the colleges will cease to exist if they don't have 50% of their funding. So they're going to have to figure out a kind of clever way to continue doing some of the things that they've done, but in a way that is in a gray area of what the federal government is requiring. Okay, so hopefully my answer is not too ambiguous, right? Unfortunately, that's all I can say right now. But in the weeks to come, if there are additional things, I will definitely kind of bring those up in our trainings as well. Okay. We have another question that says for outside scholarships that are one-time disbursement, can you ask the university to apply the scholarship to loans, work, study rather than from grants? Also, so here, no, you can't, right? So loans and work study, while they're called financial aid, they have the college doesn't, let's put it this way. I said the financial aid officers are always very tricky, right? Loans, work study, and grants or scholarships, or I'll just call it free money, right? Work study, and loans are not free money. You either have to work for them or you have to repay them. The other bucket of money is free money. They can call it aid, finance, like scholarships, grants, whatever they want to call it, right? But at the end of the day, it is free money, right? Now, the colleges look at both these buckets of money as exactly the same, right? Oh, well, we provided you a loan. We provided you with the opportunity to work, right? But unfortunately, right, when it comes to kind of reducing your financial aid, it will only go to the free money bucket, right? So if there's $10,000 in the free money bucket and you get a $5,000 scholarship, well, they're going to take the $5,000 out of the free money bucket, not out of the loans or the work study. Okay. The second part of the question is also in year 2 to 4. Can you just remind the university that the scholarship was only for freshman year and not renewable, so to restore their original financial aid award instead of subtracting their previous? You can try. I just haven't seen it work, right? Because your freshman year, the reason why I say the freshman year is the most important is because that is your baseline year. That is what the college is going to think that they need to give you each year, right? So if your baseline year is lower, right, when they look over the financials again for kind of your situation and like the formula they use, they're not going to see anything different if your income is still roughly the same, right? So again, that's why those outside scholarships can be kind of detrimental sometimes. Okay. So keep that in mind, right? There are a lot of kind of things that you have to be aware of so that you don't get you aren't kind of in a kind of pickle. Okay. All right. Any additional questions? Okay. So I'll do last call on questions. Go ahead and put them in the Q&A or in the chat. I'll make sure to kind of do those. But for families that have not met with me yet, right? Or even if you have met with me, you should, and like you guys are still kind of pondering or kind of wondering about the situation, you should sign up for a consultation so that we can talk, right? There's no harm in talking, right? I feel like I'm a pretty easy person to talk to, right? You can kind of tell me what your situation is, what you're worried about, and I'll tell you if I have some solutions or not, right? If I do, I'll tell you about the program. If I don't, right, for families that know, I literally send you on your way. I'm like, I wish I could have done more. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do. You know, let me know if you need any help with anything else, right? So there's no real pressure sale there. Okay, so sign up for that consultation. Our consultations are always free, right? And we should be able to help you. Okay. All right. So I don't see any additional questions. Again, I will leave this up so you guys can kind of take a picture of the QR code or take a screenshot. But if you guys do have additional questions, reach out, right? Email, text, right? Well, not text right now, right? But email, right? Discord, right? Facebook, Messenger, right? Whatever it is, reach out so that we can make sure that we get you the help that you need. Okay. So everyone have a good night. It's raining where I am. So everyone, be safe on the roads out there. And if you guys do have any other questions, reach out and I'll talk to you again soon. Okay. All right. Everyone have a great night. Bye-bye.